Good morning. Welcome back to another AM Ohm. I'm your host Z, joined today as always by Sun Yoga and
Miles,
aka Wind Long.
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I like that. Keep it.
This is how it's going to be.
And our special guest.
And our guest today, Jaya Raise,
Hey.
MC, producer, songwriter, full of forgiveness for me today. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm feeling great.
Awesome. I'm feeling good. I was listening to Called or Uncalled on the way here, and I really needed to hear that this morning.
Nice. You got the call, huh?
Yeah. Called or Uncalled. What is it? God is
present.
God is present. Yeah.
My mom, she shared that quote with me originally. Of like, it's amazing how I was told like a long time ago, your mother is your best friend. And it doesn't like, I'm 36 now, and that like adage is becoming more and more valuable and more useful. It's like, she's connected me with so many people in this community that I've like had now have like these amazing relationships with and like do music and art with, and she's connected me with people, and like she told me that little, called or uncalled, God is present. She like put me onto that, and I was like, wow, she just like hands me over the most potent, beautiful, wonderful resources, and she's like, that love and that care that she has is kind of like unparalleled, because she's like, she doesn't want anything from me. That's like an amazing relationship to have, where you're like, guess what? I love you, but I don't want anything from you. So, yeah, so she shared that with me, which was, I think Dr. Carl Jung initially had kind of like made it more known, but it's actually from the Oracle at Delphi originally. It's like that.
And that's the title of your new album coming out.
That's the album. Yeah, the album's out.
That's right.
The album's
That's right.
out. That is the title of the album, Called or Uncalled. And I found just a lot of value in what that meant. It's like, has to do with the labels that we put on things. So it's like, whether or not you speak it or invoke it, it's still there. It talks of, for me, there's so much in it. It's an acknowledgement to hierarchy. It's like, whether or not you acknowledge hierarchy, it exists. So it kind of puts you immediately in your place, like in the scheme of hierarchy. And yeah, there's just, I think there's a lot to unpack there. And then also, there's so much that we deal with, like in hip hop and in music, like, oh, what's your name? What's your brand? What's your this and that? It's like, those things, like, I have the least amount of attraction and connection with those kind of like premises. It's like, how are you gonna be this egoic extension of money making? Like, I don't know. It will happen, maybe, or not, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like when I'm like painting a picture, people are always wanting to ask like, what does it mean? It's like, I'm just painting a visual. I never agreed to give you words. Like as rappers, we're like, I'm just doing words. You want something else?
Right.
Go to this other guy.
Right.
And like I was listening to the J Live on the way over here, and he said something about, and being an MC is fighting for the moment.
Yes.
And that really spoke to me, and it connected again to what you were just saying in that quote about God is present. And I loved the idea that as people on the stage, we fight for the moment, and what we fight for it with is beautiful. Because if people listen, like you guys are listening now, and what I'm saying is what I have to offer, and there's various people who have various things to offer, and it's beautiful when we can give them the space. It's like, you got something to say? Okay. Whether it's what we like or not, and it's like that just helps them go, ah.
True indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all here. It's a big emotion game. We're all here to learn how to work with our emotions so that we can live with them and start to combine all the bodies into one. In that sense, to work from your higher self, but have where we're not storing emotions off to the side anymore.
Right.
Process them now, in the moment, deal with it, and that is, I see us, that's what we're doing here. That's why the world's so emotional, because it's our turn to learn how to work with it for real, not hide it anymore. Be about it, whatever's happening, say it now, put it out, feel it in the moment, feel the fire. That kind of stuff is what I feel like we're going through.
The conscious evolutionary process has its foundations in observation. The first step to that entire process is seeing. It's exactly the premise and the principle of medicine. Like, you go and see a doctor, and the first thing they do is observe. You have to have diagnosis, and that's first. And in our, prime material plane, physical world, samsara, whatever you want to call it, it seems like the theme is suffering, like that we've learned from, Lord Buddha. Like, the first teaching is there is suffering. So we're in this, like you said, we have the potential to be this generation of people who acknowledge very sincerely and truthfully that there is, maybe a deficit, or maybe something's not quite right or not quite kosher. But that's humility right there. That beginning process of observing and being like, I do have negative emotions. Or not necessarily I do or I am, but that they exist and they arise. And that's like an acknowledgement, and that's humble. That's humility right off the bat, and that's the foundation. I was taught that that's the foundation of the spiritual path, is it begins at zero. It doesn't begin with you all puffed up. I had a teacher tell me that everyone expects you to kind of come in and engage with the guru, and that what he does is he invites you into an elevator, and that he pushes the button for you and takes you right to the penthouse suite, and brings you all the way up. And my teacher told me what's more factual is that the teacher presses the button and the floor drops out and fall all the way to the bottom. And that, to me, really resonated, especially here in Ashlantis. There's a lot of it's very easy to get puffed up. It's very easy to have this approach that we're all ultra conscious and ultra everything's fine. It's it's much more valuable to come from a place where it's man, I make mistakes. I have negativities that still arise in me. I am not that. It's a good thing to recognize that is not actually you, but that they still, transpire in you. And then we can all agree. Then we're oh, you have difficulties. There's difficulties that arise in me too. We're still working and learning together. And then that creates fellowship, immediately.
Well, that's movement. The physics of that is movement and growth. Once we go, oh, this is what it is, then there's no movement. That's it.
You're saying stagnation when you're locked in.
Yeah.
This is all it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a continued thing till we go. I think. I don't think we ever know fully. I hope I never go, oh, perfect, I got it. You know what I mean?
Plateau.
There we go. Yeah, and in that sense, I keep thinking about the physics of philosophy, because we live in a physical world, and I think even the less visible realities, like James often says, the subtle world, I think those worlds are also, in some sense, affected by the physics, the movements, and if someone's puffed up, and a pseudo-dolphin, they think they know, they're holier than thou, they're I got it figured out. First of all, in my opinion, someone says that, they don't know. But it's also closed. And they're not progressing in that. And I love what you said, because for me, I think, if I ever had if I ever sought out a guru, I would think they would test me. And I realize I have had gurus, and they have tested me. And my stepdad was one of my greatest gurus, and he tested me all the time. And I don't know who said it, but I love the mantra of comfort the afflicted and afflict those comfortable. Because that right there speaks to not ever being stayed in one spot. Always be strengthened in your roots.
I think it like also alludes to that impermanence. You know, the Buddhist doctrine is like one of their main teachings is about impermanence. And so it's like recognized in your activity that we are all constantly shifting, changing, adapting, and the gurus are the ones who are really good at it. They are one with the river or the stream or the movement or that change. You know, they're like, they don't separate themselves. We like get all caught up in like, sometimes we want to be stagnant. That's like our dreams. Like, I wish, like you just said, like the plateau thing, like, you know, and I think that we've all actually really had that. You kind of like wish for things that aren't necessarily good for you. And you don't know not to wish for those things or not to want them until you've gone through the process of wanting them a bunch. You know, it's kind of like clarifying what the request is. And that's like part of the process too. It's like the cosmic restaurant. You're like, I'll have a big plate of shit. And they're like, here you go. And you're like, this is not quite what I was thinking. It's like, it's exactly what you ordered.
Yeah, that's what you ordered. Yeah. I love that we're having these meetings, and I love that you're here, because, you know, when I first met you, I was like, dude is cool. And then when we kicked it and grabbed a beer, I was like, James, dude's deep too. Like, he's spiritual, man. It's like before I met James, I hadn't met really any other cats who were on a similar path, on the path. And it just feels so beautiful to be up here where a lot of people are, you know, on the path. Whichever direction they're coming at it from, they're called.
There's something really special about Southern Oregon. It has its own difficulties and it has its own like attributes, and you know, both are really unique just to the place and the location. There's like, I've like mentioned several times, you know, the Buddhist teaching, and that's like kind of the most recent thing that I've been fortunate enough to be exposed to. Is in the Colstein Valley, there's a temple, Buddhist monastery called Tashi Chuling, and my wife and I have got to spend a little bit of time going to some teachings and some pujas, and the guru who has established, you know, that place and maintained it, the Venerable Gyaltso Rinpoche, he is just incredible. He's like in his 90s, and his mind capacity and the refinement of his being and his soul is so sharp and direct. And what I really resonated with, especially being a Westerner and being kind of like, we're on the crest of like a lot of New Ageism, and it's real fluffy. It can be really like this puffed up sort of thing. And he's just like, he just says the most outlandish shit, but it's just direct to the heart. He's like, stop with all your hippie bullshit. Like, he'll just say, you know, he's like a Tibetan, this like, you know, Tibetan fellow in his 90s. And he fled from Chinese persecution. Like, there's a story that he was actually moving with a train of monks to get to India when they were fleeing Tibet, and the Chinese came down on them and started to shoot at the entire group of people that he was with, and they killed, I think, all of them or the majority of them, and the only way that he survived was he pretended that he was dead. He like laid down in this field of all these people and pretended like that he'd gotten shot, and he said when he stood up, he like shook out his robes and bullets fell off of all of his robes.
Whoa.
And then he made it to America. He was actually sent here by the Dalai Lama and His Holiness Dujum Rinpoche to establish Tashi Chuling, and the way that he's available and integrates and works with us Westerners is perfect, because he sees like the goodness, the energy that we have, you know, the Western energy, and also sees like our arrogance and our pompousness, and that we don't actually come from a lineage. We like have like these two things that are kind of like looking to be reconciled. But the Dharma has found like the Dharma was able to survive here. Like they love America. They're like, you guys, gave us they're like, we had to pick up basically our orchard and bring it to a new place so that it could like grow and get the fruition, So it's like really incredible. And so when I think of him, it just draws back to like humility. Are you able to be like real and down to earth, or do you come into every situation super puffed up? Do you know everything already? And it's like, yes, that's like constantly something that I have to like put into check, like being at the co-op or whatever, like looking at other people and being all like judgy and shit. Like it happens to us automatically. It's just like the kind of temperament of egoity. So it's good to be around people who like not only acknowledge that, but want to check that and then can help each other, like be like, hey, maybe that was not the coolest move or like the coolest thing that you said. And like being around real people, they'll help you like that, And if you're in a good relationship, then you can talk about things and be like, maybe that wasn't the coolest thing that happened.
Have you guys ever read Letters to a Young Poet by Rainier Maria Rilke?
No.
It is, out of all the spiritual books, it's not really, it's one of my favorite. Because it's like, there's a lot of spiritual messages that get put out, but what I found in that book was so profound to understand a mentor or a guru, because Rainier Maria Rilke was an amazing poet and philosopher, and he was an older gentleman, and some younger poets started writing him letters and trying to engage in that way, and eventually he sent him some of his poetry, and he was wanting some critique, like we all do initially. We're like, this is what we think we want from this person.
Right.
Take us to the top floor, the penthouse.
Cup's full. It's like, hey, can you fill up my cup some more?
Yeah.
And then they're like, pour that out for you.
Well, and the main thing I've gotten so far this pass from that book is that he said something along the lines of, just because you see someone like a mentor who has vast insight on something and seeming stability in that wisdom doesn't mean they don't struggle with it. And immediately I integrated that lens to understand everyone more, whether they're bodhisattvas or Buddhas or Christs. It's like, I think that people who have vast insights still struggle with those things, and that's why they have vast insight.
Indeed.
And like it's always important to me to remember that, because it helps soften the need to want to pedestalize things, to separate. It's like they're struggling with similar things.
And that's why they're masters, is because they deal with the same things that we do, but it's like the grace in which they deal with them and the adversity, they like take that and they transmute it. They turn the difficulties that most of us, that like cripple most of us, and they use it as like fuel. It's like being able to take your negativity and turn it into like diesel or like jet fuel and be like, oh, actually this helps me fly. You're like, and that's a huge grace. That's a huge mercy, because if the situation wasn't that you could take difficulties and turn them into consciousness or love, then we would all be so, what's the word? Fucked. It would just be terrible. I'm sorry, and I was going to ask about the explicitness of our content beforehand.
What is going to charge you $1?
Okay, every time there's a
whatever YouTube charges us.
Well, we would all certainly be like in a situation that would be utterly terrible. It'd be like a hell parallel, because there'd mean no matter what happened, it would just bring you down. But that's like part of the mercy, is that we have the ability as humans, that's like our special quality, is transformation. We can take something that is difficult and turn it into insight or wisdom or potential or help, compassion. Like you look at someone who's had like a lot of difficulties, and they don't become a serial killer. They're not like, oh, I'm gonna take all this negativity and just put it out the other side. They take all these things that maybe happen in the negative, and then they turn it into like the exact opposite. They turn it into like, oh, compassion or availability or mercy or teaching. So it's like that is the most, I think, the kindest gift that we have as humans is that ability to transform, transmute,
In my first album, I said, "Those who know high roads know where low roads go." And
Straight up.
one thing that really saved me from my own, young striving, thinking that, okay, I've got to figure out how to be in that state of bliss at all times, not let things affect you and these kind of things. And then I'm reading the books I'm reading, and it's like people think they're going to find this state where nothing's going to be wrong anymore. And it's not that you can't attain an understanding of things to where it doesn't affect you so strongly, where it takes you over. But even the greatest sages, someone like Jesus or Buddha, went through moments, and all disciples on the path go through moments of, was I wrong? I thought I had it.
Right.
I guess I was wrong. I don't feel it anymore. It's why hast thou forsaken me, O
Father,
Lord?
why hast thou
And,
forsaken
but
me?
then, a week later, you have moments of, oh my gosh, I am on it. I am connected. And they said it's the peaks and valleys where like life will take you from moments of long periods of you're in it, and then all of a sudden you'll be out again. I thought I had it. And us coming to grips with that's the path. And that to learn how to handle those ups and downs with a more calm mentality.
It's really interesting. It's like value systems that are kind of like within us, and I don't know if it's innate or if it's something that happens just from living or being human, but we like discern things like, oh, this is an adverse situation, or this is a easy situation, or this is a difficulty and this is not, or this is fortunate and this is unfortunate. They're all like this pendulum flipping back and forth, topsy-turvy like way, and ultimately it's just reality. It's isness. It just is. So we're the ones that we have all this like value system on it. And value systems, I think, are incredibly important because they can help you realize, but they can help you understand things, and especially like relationship. But then it's like ultimately, it seems to me like ultimately they get at the very end, they're just abandoned. Like it's like a value, you refine your value system continually as you progress, so that you're like able to connect and resonate and like see kind of hierarchy or order. And then ultimately at the very tail end of it, it's just like it just all is. And there's no like, it doesn't matter what you or like say about it. This is good, this is bad.
Sure.
It just is what it is. But we have like, we're human, so we have all these feelings about everything.
I think what you value is learned, and you can relearn it. That's what I'm going through right now, is trying to relearn my values. So
Totally.
if you value money and fast cars and that kind of thing, that'll get you so far.
Right. 100%. Yeah.
Well, that's that conditioning.
Yeah, and it's strange, like, I feel like we don't always recognize that we're valuing something. Like, it just is an automatic process. Like, because after a while, the fish see all but the water.
Which goes back to observation.
Observation.
Like you were
It's
saying.
like, it's the first process.
Yeah.
It's, it's like being able to be accountable by just starting to see. And that observation it's uncritical. It doesn't sort things, initially. Like if we establish that the beginning of the conscious evolutionary process is observation, it would be just to see it. It wouldn't be like, okay, or like you did something, like you hit somebody. Well, you have to see that you hit someone. You have to see that was what you decided, that's what you valued, and that's what you thought was the right response. it's not actually necessary to be like, and that was bad. You know, it's like it happened, it is. Now, if you see that that's what you do, then those things will start to kind of sort themselves out. The more you're around like someone who's like a teacher or like a guru or someone who embodies or has a being of some qualities that you think are worthy, you'll be like, I observe them and they don't just get up and like smack somebody when they're having a hard time. You're like, it becomes like a relative kind of process, you know? See like column A, column B.
I think a lot of that's also like the ability to scope out and in. I think that's part of, I mean, as a poet, I do that. And I think as a philosopher, I do that. I lens things. I go, okay, well, this works with this. Let me hold it up for this. And I think we also go, like, if I ever had hit someone, I haven't, we go, I hit someone. And it could be one thing by itself. But then we could also go, oh, I hit someone. You know, have I done that before? Why did I do that? And then at some point we justify, and then we go, am I justifying? You know, how do I feel about it? And then we scope back so far that we see that that one thing is a part of a larger machine. And it's like to fully walk around an immense shape, we have to get back far enough to see where its edges are. And as humans, it's such a beautiful, evanescent and quicksilver, two synonyms for the same thing, fleeting, a fleeting thing that you can't put your hands on, but it's this subtle world. It's the martial arts of emotion and energy, and it's such a beautiful thing that with each action that we take, we can further sculpt the sculpture inside. And I really relate to that in the sense of spirituality, because you can hit someone and you can hit people to the end of your life. And I think that at the end of your life, you might just get it all anyway. So why not get it as soon as you can now? You know, and then you go, oh man, and you reel from that. And then you find what's real from that. I gotta write that down.
That's how we come up with those lines for the album.
Pause, everyone.
Grammy
Inspirato just hit.
Hammer time. Oh, he's from Oakland apparently.
Hammer?
Hammer.
The MC?
He was one of the Oakland A's bat boys when he was young.
Yeah. I'm learning about my history.
Last time I saw him, he was at the supermarket selling me tape in a cardboard cutout. Yeah, I came around the corner. I was like, ah! And I was like, oh, it's Hammer time. And I was like, oh, Hammer.
Why was he selling tape?
I don't know. It was something. It
at
was
least nails.
Yeah, right. No, it was something. It was something like that. It was something very like commonplace. So it was just like. It was like
office supplies.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it is.
Just like,
yeah, it's Hammer.
Scotch tape.
So he's doing scotch now. Okay. Right. He must be hurt for somebody.
Stacking those chips.
I wouldn't talk about Hammer, dog.
Yeah, I know.
There's stories. He showed
It's
up
all
at your
love,
house
bro.
with the boys.
Don't Hammer will hit you.
Didn't he have that song, Don't Hurt Him, Hammer?
Yeah, don't hurt him, Hammer.
Yeah. It's
That was my. Oh, I love MC Hammer when that came out. I was like, yeah. And it was funny because my brothers were from that generation of, like, they're 10 years older than me, and they put me on to, like, they were like, this is De La Soul, this is Tribe Called Quest, this is Diggable Planets. They were like, you need to listen to these things. And I had an immediate gravity, like, towards that music because it was all, you know, wonderful things. And then also I'm a little kid, so you got MTV feeding me like, and by the way, here's that Hammer. So I started being like, yeah, here's Hammer too. This is cool, right? And my brothers are like, no. Like, never confuse the two.
Have you watched the Hip Hop Evolution documentary on Netflix?
I got through like 3 or 4 episodes and was fantastic, but then I haven't finished the rest. I plan on it.
When you get into it, they get into Hammer and like where he came from and why he was the way he was, and all the people of those eras. And it's really neat to see the roles they all played in the development of what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Of why we're even able to do what we do today. Because these people were creating out of their own inspiration and imagination this world that is now called hip hop.
Yeah.
You know, and they all had characters to play.
archetypes.
They created.
Totally. Well, that's like a bigger... Hip hop is always... It can't be anything other than like a microcosm of a greater thing. So it's like the same situation. There's roles to be filled that happen in this play for whatever reason. Why this needs to happen, I have no idea. I don't know if any of you know, but it's like some sort of process that is going on, just like a digestive thing or your respiration or whatever it is.
You know, I often think that there is an energetic archetypal structure framework within our existence where it's not so much our choice, it's our ability to fit the position. Like we're all emerging through this thing and we go, well, there's two class clowns, so the one most needing to be the class clown will be, the other will shift.
Right.
I think there's like a structural archetypicality.
Totally.
That is not a correct conjugation,
Totally.
just to throw that out
It's a
there.
hierarchy. There
You said the word a few times. I
You
was going
flashed
to do
the
this.
camera with this one.
It's called hierarchy. It's a invisible structure that is here already
Yes.
that we are becoming aware of.
There's really, there's interesting ideas that have been put forth about all these things that are like, one is that there's recurrence. Recurrence is that you will live the same life continually until you can evolve from it. Like you finish this life and then just repeat it like a Groundhog Day sort of thing, but you'll do the entirety of your life, or that you'll be put into the same. So that has varying degrees because we already do live the same life on a day-to-day basis until you change it. So you like go to sleep, you die, you wake up, you're reborn, but you're the same thing. It's kind of interesting. So there's already validity in that. And then, another idea that I've studied or was made aware of is that these characters need to be played, but eventually they need to be played by everyone. You need to not only be Judas, but you also need to be Jesus. And you need to be, you need to kind of like understand what it's like to go through this process of everyone. You need to be Hitler, and you need to be the Dalai Lama, and go through all of those things, because that's like, if there was a God understanding or presence, it would encompass all of them.
That's right.
And so if we were actually want to resonate to the highest form of what spirit would be, that would have to encompass everything. Nothing would be excluded. But usually we're like, well, shit, let's keep those over there. No one really wants to go through the Dahmer play, but everybody wants to check out, the Bodhisattva play. But they're not exclusive. They both are they're both characters in the grand play that we're going through. So
Parmenter Yogananda said that in a movie theater he realized there was the good guy and the bad guy, and then he looked up and there was one beam of light casting both of them. And that's what made him see it comes from one source though. And
so great.
A friend of mine, when the whole African Mambata thing came up and everyone has their opinion on what's going on with African Mambata and the New York and stuff like that, and the way that KRS-One took his stance of, I don't judge people like that, I'm not going to, and he didn't just condemn him. People really get on KRS-One for not condemning the actions. And my thought was, well, KRS-One isn't playing on this dimension like everyone else. They don't understand what he studied really coming from. And my friend said something, he posted this thing on my post about KRS-One not taking that stance. And my friend's a big Parmenter Yogananda fan. And I wrote to him, what would Parmenter Yogananda say about this?
Right.
Do you think he'd judge African Mambata?
Right.
Do you think he'd just come and condemn him? He would say what he would say, and I said, I believe this is where KRS-One's coming from as well. Some people are understanding that one is not better than the other, and to learn to be the observer. And that is what we are going through. Look at us four. 20 years ago, would any four of us think that we'd be sitting here having conversations about this stuff in this lifetime? I wouldn't have.
No, definitely not.
So how cool is it that the world is waking up? We are waking up. And even if it's just us, I'm not saying there's this huge evolution going on, but I think there is. And that it can even include us four. So who else is being touched by this? Who else is reading that book for the first time going, I guess I do kind of believe in this stuff. I could get into it. The whole Ashland thing and the higher concepts. And that was my first step of, I was the weirdo in rap saying God and love. Everybody thought I was a Christian rapper, but I didn't know about crystals and sacred geometry. I was like, I don't know. Until I met people who lived it a little more. And then you you hear the terms, the New Age terms, and you can kind of see where like, this was me trying to figure out how to be in the bliss the whole time. Everything's positive, everything's positive. That can be a true statement at times when you can see everything can be positive if you accept it all, right? And so these kind of statements of not being very careful to just put one thing on it, saying everything's positive, but at the same time giving validity. These people up here who have higher vibrations or are talking about the gates we're going through and all these things. In a sense, they're architects for a higher structure. Maybe that's their job. Where we may see it and go, well, are you acknowledging the shadow side? A huge part of this movement is acknowledge your shadow yoga, shadow this, acknowledge it. Beautiful. But some people are here to push things that are 10th dimension, and they're in concept land, and maybe they don't put their feet on the earth that much, as well. And maybe that's just right now in their life. Maybe in 5 years, they'll start going through a cycle where they have to come back into a shadow. Or they'll even go higher. But that's the neat thing about this time is you're seeing everyone kind of start looking for their place, or what can I do?
How long did it take? So all you guys are going on about some great philosophy. How long did it take you guys to integrate this into your life?
I read a fortune cookie on the way over here.
Penthouse, top of the elevator, penthouse.
You got any more of those fortune cookies?
You got any more of those fortune cookies?
I'd say 22 years, 23 years now, since my acid trip on November 7th, 1995.
Bam! Homie's got the date locked on the tablet.
Yeah.
It's a year after I was born.
Hey.
Almost to the day.
Hey.
Yeah.
And I think I was born this way. My
Like Lady Gaga?
I don't know. I've been a poet my whole life, and my mom would write down things that I would say before I could write things down. And I would say things to her, and she would look at me, and she tells me this now, because I don't remember. She said that I looked like some old person, and I was saying these things and channeling these things, and, I definitely struggled with my natural accent when learning to rap, to not just dawn that, I'm like rapping, like gotta sound like this. But what I've been saying has always been philosophical. I've always definitely had a big rooting in wordplay, but I've always been searching to find my reality in it. And I think it's always been that way, because when I sit at a blank piece of paper and I think, what can I write? I always want to write the deepest, most important thing that I can fathom. And so for me, I've always been this. And especially coming from poetry first, that's been very rooting in the philosophy.
I got to give him a little validity to that, because a lot of I'll give him
Just
a little bit.
I can verify what the homie's saying is slightly true.
A lot of the Agni Yoga stuff that I'm reading, the hierarchy book I showed you, and they speak on, there are some people who learn it through meditation, who work through work. But if people can live from the heart, you can bypass all of that and have an experience straight from the heart. But that's a certain way of understanding how to live and be within the moment. And I find many times the way Miles talks about things, I'm like, see, he hasn't read these books, he hasn't done this stuff, but yet he is living the exact same way, naturally, through his art, through his self-discovery. And I'm always really interested in what pushes someone to begin that searching. Why at 19? Now, obviously the acid helped a little bit, and some psychedelics and meditation and other things that came to me. But it was like, why did I think I could do this? Why didn't I just go, oh, that's cool, I guess I'll just go to college and work on computers? Why didn't I buy in? The hip-hop helped, a lot helped. I say why, because it just blows my mind that we're sitting here today having this conversation.
What you're saying, Miles, makes me think of the teaching that your Buddha nature is prior to your egoic existence. It's
Yes.
already there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what we're talking about, this process of evolutionary process and potential, is not an adding to. It's really the clarifying and the removing of delusions from what your nature is. And humans in particular, that your nature, you already have access to what, there's actually very specific circumstances what makes a precious human rebirth, what the Buddhists call a precious human rebirth. But just to be a human is already just a great start. You already have a huge advantage over the animal realms, over the ghost realms, over the demonic realms. You're already like kind of high up on the totem right there. And so we're given this kind of like accessibility that you have like a little bit of an instantaneous innate inkling that there is an awareness in you that precedes any of your thoughts and concepts. And so it's like, for other people, it's like, oh, I have to do all these things. I have to go through kind of like this karmic debt where I have to sit and meditate. And other people just kind of like, I was just having a cup of coffee and I just like realized, in my heart, in my purity, that it understands and knows everything already. Everything that it needs to know. Everything that is actually important is already now. So it's just recognizing that nowness. See, when we go through like the thing like, oh, after I accomplish this like meditative practice of 7 years, then later down over there when I'm at this place, then it's happening. But that's not the truth. It's just as simple. It's as simple and as direct as now. And as being available, and like you were saying earlier, like acknowledging that we have these things that we maybe need to work through. That's like part of the process. I was told that, I was taught and told, and I can really verify that the entirety of this, what we're talking about, this path, is just the purification of your heart. So all it is. It's not a cerebral thing. It's not like if I know this word, like if I know how to say this mantra. It's not like a knowledge thing. And it's not like, oh, if I can bend my legs in a certain way. But it's this middle factory. It's this middle section that it's like, if you can relieve your heart of negativity, that's like the ultimate antenna that we have. It's not only transmitting, but receiving.
Relieve your heart of negativity. Let's say that again, if we can.
Relieve your heart of negativity.
But it's neat what you said about, it's the mantra does a part, maybe the positions do a part, but it
totally
is. But you
help.
said the goal is working for that heart.
It's that, and we like, I did it for years. You get wrapped up in thinking that the process is about like, oh, if I know more, then that'll be it. Or if my body does this, and it's like those things can facilitate. They can help, work with that, and they can actually be conducive to the process of relieving negativity from your heart, because you can be sitting here and be like, I don't want to be negative anymore, but you might start thinking about some issues that you have with your dad.
Well, you've already used negativity. I don't want to be negative anymore.
Right. You're like trying to
Negate.
Yeah.
And those things come up. It's like, what will make your relationship with your parents be absolved, so you don't have, or like harbor any resentment. So like, oh, I'm on the spiritual path, but there's this one lover that I'm not with anymore that I'm still actually like super pissed off about. Like, what does it take to actually let go of those things? And that's what you're saying, James, is a trip. It's like, how does that process happen? For some people it can, but just be like, oh, I was having a cup of tea and then it was done. They're like, oh, my trip was over. And other people can go to the ashram every single day and like do the motions and everything and still just be like, caught. And there's like, it's kind of just the karmic timing of things, which none of us know.
The weight of our struggles is directly proportionate to the weight of what's needed to overcome those struggles and to retain what we get from that. I mean, I was talking to James about that, about like, how beautiful that I don't feel fully present yet, because it's easier for me not to be assailed and weighted down with not being there yet. Like he's got many friends, and we're listening to some of this music. A friend of his that he's reworking some of this music, and there was like struggle in this person's life, and his music is so deep and real, and his message is epic. And I was asking him, I said, is he a really present person? Does he know the weight of his words? And he was saying he does. And I was like, just reflecting on that, how, of course, it would be difficult, struggling when you feel very present. There's a beauty in not feeling very present, because the dirt doesn't stick to your feet when you're walking in the clouds, and at some point you're going to get there and you're going to be like, all right, and that'll hopefully be balanced by the weight of what was needed to overcome that. Does the fish may not know the water, but does he know the air? Can he see the air? Because we can see the water.
That's a beard stroke right there.
Yeah.
I wish I had more of a beard.
Where's my beard?
Where's my beard at? Would anyone like more tea?
I would love some. Let's go for this guy first. His Thriz note needs a little
Who, me?
Liznov.
Big up to DJ Silva Soul,
Yeah.
Sylvain.
Blessings.
We love that guy.
Yes, sir.
And he would be so sad at me that my kung fu tea pouring is so poor. My pouring is poor.
Would you want some?
Oh, good.
All right. I'm last at the mic. My mom's been
Trip,
really
you
getting...
trying to get some of this juice, Trip?
Yeah.
There's more of this juice.
Yeah, I was watching that hip-hop documentary too, and my mom's been like sitting, getting sucked into it, going like, oh, that's what's all happening. That's where it... and it's really, I love...
Blessed.
I just love seeing things come together more. Where there's starting to be an understanding or a wanting to see, and
Miles, you love words so much, and I've been meaning
man.
to express this to you,
What
and
you got?
I forgot. Do you know what the difference between the words conscience and conscious are?
give me a sec. Conscience and conscious.
Yes.
I believe conscience is give a little whistle. It's that voice. Let your conscience. It's your intuitive voice, and conscious speaks to the level at which you're aware.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are correct. And in addition to what you're saying, it was I read it a very simple explanation of I think it actually draws into the etymology too. Conscience is feeling altogether. Feeling altogether. And conscious is knowing altogether. So it relates to two different faculties that we all have access to. It represents to because mind, not to say from what we were just talking about, it's not to say that knowledge is not, but hugely useful and valuable. It just plays a certain sort of function. And also the emotional thing, it's but people are using those two words kind of I've noticed when I see them, I wonder if they know that they're using one instead of the other, because it's almost a lost art to mean what you say and say what you mean.
There's a word for that. There is. I'm trying to remember what that is. It's I don't remember. It'll come to me in a second.
It's called truthity.
But
There's about to be words.
I often think of at some point where the path was pointed to as two paths instead of one, where the words split. I love the concept.
Right.
And
all of a sudden there was why is there?
Oh no, that's
need
two words.
for,
Oh no, that's one word.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of words actually come into play that way. They're mispronounced, or they're written in a different way.
Right, happy or unfortunate accidents, however you view it.
Well, and I like to think about illusion and allusion.
Right.
They're so similar. And one of them, illusion, is something that's not there, but you see it there. And allusion is something that's alluding to it being there. It's they're so similar.
I think that has the same sort of almost draw into that same thing of an emotional allusion with an A is it's pointing to something, you're alluding to something, right? It's a feeling almost. It's kind of you can draw to it in your imagination. And illusion is a cerebral, it's almost it has a physical manifestation in your your cortex coming through your eyeballs, but they can totally be, you can have inner illusions, and all of us do. You can be have all sorts of concepts about yourselves.
This reminds me just of what you're talking about, how you're saying being now is about bringing all the bodies together. All of those mold of mans, unify them, come back, snap back, reverse Doctor Strange. You know what I mean? Be in the moment. And it's such an interesting thing that in the real truth exists with no sounds. We could sit here in a circle and we would all be the most correct we've ever been by not saying anything. And And it's really cool how in
That's
our
really correct.
dude, he's the most correct cat.
Correct.
Yeah. But and especially with hip hop, we want to say something new. We want to split the line in half and then split the line in half again. We want to come up with new. We want to.
I don't want to say anything new, Miles.
That was new.
You knew.
Mathematically
you knew
speaking, that was the most new thing you could say. And it's so dope though because it's really about jockeying for that position. Humor is a lot like that because humor is recognizing the climate of the culture and speaking to this one little thread, and you go, oh, and they go, oh! It's just like hip hop. We're like, oh, yeah. Oh, what about this? Oh!
I feel like hip hop has become the ultimate forum to work on some of these things for me. Like, it wouldn't be like this for everyone, but it's been like karmically, it's been something that's been opened up to me because it's like this place where it's like, how do I engage in a compassionate, inspired, loving relationship with strangers and also kind of negate prideful arrogance. But then they also we want that. You want this sort almost like vanity, like this kind of pompous, braggadocio from your MC. That's like kind of what they embody, is this recognize my individualness. And then also being aware of the ultimate illusion of that separateness and being like, okay, how do I draw everyone in so that they feel that feel? So for me, it's been like this exploration of how do those things kind of mesh? How can they coexist?
100%.
It's been difficult because I feel like this hip hop background is there's certain things, it's like a warrior's culture. It's also, it's a culture where if you don't have confidence, you're not allowed on stage. And the audience, it's not the owners of the club or the venue or whatever. The audience doesn't want you up there. No one's seeing MC DJ super sad boo boo. And even the cats who are really on that, they're really on I'm just gonna talk about myself so much and be I'm so sad. And so that's kind of this new wave, they're very emo and everything like that. They're very emotional and everything. And they're I'm so self-deprecating. But that's that is veiled behind their extreme this is who I am. It's a confidence. It's in an arrogance almost that's that precedes that, and it's it passes itself as this is this kind of subtly vulnerable place. But it's actually it's kind of tucked right behind this veil of kind of pride. So for me, it's been really interesting because I've been wanting to play with both, I
think it's really interesting because, I think a lot of people don't really know at the core. A lot of people want to be told, this is a hit. This guy's good. And so I think when the person doesn't hold themselves as if they are worth watching, it's easy for people not to watch. And I was talking to my mom about this just yesterday. She didn't know that Con is confidence. It's a confidence man. And it's so interesting that where's the difference between using the confidence for something that's not there? Yo, I got this plan right here, this triangle plan, man. You put in, you get this, and you're going to get that.
Right.
Versus, hey, I got something to say. You should hear it. It's confidence is so dope. And it's one of the secret invisible weapons we have. And I'm learning confidence, and you guys are epic teachers in the confidence. When I first saw this guy get on the step out from behind the tables and get on the mic, his stance was unshakable. He was this triangle, and then when you get out there, you're dancing, and I was oh shit, I didn't know you could do that kind of stuff. Because I was like a Luxor before, where I was just in the zone, and I was zoning in, and I would close my eyes, and I would come out of this trance.
Yes.
And I'm loving being inspired at the different ways confidence can look.
we were talking about value earlier, so I'm going to try to rephrase everything you guys just said. Use the word
Yeah.
value. So the performer values expressing himself or herself, and the audience values the expression of something that they may be unable to express themselves. That's how you get fans.
I've thought about this. Were you gonna say something?
No, I agree with that in the sense that I heard one time, if I come to your show and I pay to get in your show, I better not be able to do what you do.
Right.
I better not be able to get on stage. If you're on stage and you're just doing basic and I can do that,
Yeah.
why did I pay $20 to get in?
Right.
It's like I go there to be taught, in a sense, learned something.
To bring the level up. You want to see human excellence. You know, there's an aspect that's kind of like why we do what we do, and this whole issue of confidence draws into, first off, would you do it if there wasn't an audience? And that cuts out a ton of people
Yep.
immediately. But they're the ones that, I mean, truthfully, frankly, you don't resonate with their art because it's almost like a puppet show sort of thing. They're doing it just for you. It's an exhibition. But I find that myself and everybody I've talked to, we're drawn into people who it's like undeniable. It's something in them that is emotionally there. And that's who they are, like when no one's around. That's what we're attracted to being. We're not attracted to concepts. And being has to do with gravity. It's the physics, once again. It's the physics of the world. So emotions have physics. Ideas have physics. And people are drawn into the gravity and rotation of larger masses and being, like the kind of wider, more heavy being. So if someone's like, this is the presence that it is, and that's like that's been my meditation most recently, is drawing into like, I don't care who's there. I don't care anymore if it's a packed house or if it's a 3-year-old, like, you know, like, and I've experienced all those things. I've played to empty places. I've played where it's been packed out to huge crowds, and it's just like, you have to, you know, sharing this with artists and sharing this, it's like if there's something valuable or useful that I could say to any of them, it's being in that zone where it's no longer about aiming to please other people or aiming to jump on something that's already established. Like that, we see through. Everybody's ready. If you have Buddha nature and Buddha awareness, that means you know everything already, and you're already ultra intelligent and smart and omnipresent, omniscient, and like all those things. And so everybody has a little bit of that going on. So there's a lot we don't even need to talk about. People can get up there and be like, we don't even need to talk about it. Be like, that person doesn't really believe in what they're saying. They're trying to sell me something. They're trying to confidence, you know, they're trying to con their way into being like, yo, buy my gimmick. And most of us will be like, no, thank you. And then there's people who are just like, you know what, I'm going to do this because this is what resonates within me. And then other people are like, wow, that's undeniable. Like, that's something that just is. That's like, I'm not trying to sell you some shit. I'm not trying to ask your permission. And I've also been, you know, contemplating more recently that art isn't divided into a yes or no, or a this is going to sound like a little bit absurd, but it's not a question. Real art and real genuine, you know, something that has a teaching within it, ultimately, is not a question. It doesn't ask permission. Even if the piece of art is like, are you awake? That's a statement. It's not actually a question. It's a meditative process. It exists. It's like, boom, this is an affirmation. And then it makes you, as the witness, as the audience, go through a process where you're like, am I awake?
Mm-hmm.
Am I aware? What is value? Like, what are all these things? But that's, for me, what I resonate with good art. Like, when you see, like, when AC Alone, we have this huge opportunity, you know, the show coming up. We're going to rock with AC Alone. When last time he came through.
And Abrud and Micah 9.
And Abrud and Micah 9.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't seen the two others perform, and I'm ready to be.
Okay.
I mean, I already know that that's going to be a whole other level. But just from Ace, there's no question. When he touches that microphone, there's no question in that presentation. He's not asking your permission. He's not asking you if you're ready. He's not asking if he can. It's a statement. This is. And so that's what I would like to say to the young artists. Like, and all types of art. We're not just talking about MCs. Like, make your film and be like, this is isness, you know, like make your sculpture. And, you know, I'm dealing with a lot of local artists because I love working with local artists, and then I find myself, you know, kind of you know, not intentionally coming into sort of a mentorship role with them because they'll ask me. And one thing I would say to artists is stop asking people what they think about what you do. Stop being like, did you like it? Is it good? I'm always like, who cares? Like, why does that matter? Do you
like
resonate? Do you love it? Because that's like, there are a ton of movies are coming out this summer. They're making, is it about money? There's a bunch of people making a ton of money that I don't care about, but someone's paying them. There's a bunch of people who are touring that you've never heard of, and they're living very fulfilled lives.
Right.
You know, it's like, you stop. If you're going to be an artist and you want to do that with a capital A and you want to connect into the hierarchy of what that play is, it's like, get in there. Like, stop asking permission to do it.
Yeah, learn to do it for the right reason.
Do it. And, you know, and that right reason will be different for everybody and everything, but it's like, that's one of the things that is so common amongst the, you know, the people that I'm working with that are kind of like just starting or they're developing, is they want to be verified. They're like, can you verify me? Can you put me on and tell me that I'm dope? Or can you tell me that I'm worth the time? And it's like, those are mommy and daddy issues. Like,
Sure.
you know, and we all have them. I did it for years, for years and years. Be like, am I good enough? Is this worth time? And it's like, those questions ultimately, they don't really even have a correct answer. Half of the people are going to love you, and half of them are going to like you. If I switched up right now and went straight into death rock and straight like heavy Swedish death metal, I'd lose everybody that connected with me now, and I'd gain a whole other set. There's billions of people out there with all sorts of different likes and interests. So you'd get a whole new fan base, and everybody that you were with before would completely drop off and dislike what you do. Some people
I want to hear your death rock.
Thank you, Miles. I'm actually going to play it right now.
Have you been to Jaya's show lately? No, no. I'm going to go next Friday, though. I told him I would. I'll be in the back drinking whiskey. Just talk to me.
Yeah.
Go, Jaya.
Cut to me with the black makeup on. Like, do you like it?
Yeah.
I'm still bumping Called or Uncalled, you know what I mean?
Like listening to that last album, not so much the new album.
Can they find your album on all platforms?
All platforms. I actually just made a website from Bandzoogle. They give you a free one. So Bandzoogle, Jaya Raise, Bandzoogle. But eventually it'll just be JayaRaise.com, and I've got everything up there, and there's links on all the platforms. So it's on GooglePlay, it's on iTunes, Spotify, and these are like a whole bunch of services I hadn't even. But there's a button for everything.
Oh, cool.
And the video that I just did with Zahira for Truth, we're coming up on 1,000 plays.
Beautiful.
Which is so great. Like that for me is like I'm like reaching new benchmarks and haven't ever. This is the first video I've ever done, and that may be super small beans to a lot of people, but to me that's like so beautiful because I put it out and she did a lot of promotion, and she's got a really awesome, big fan base. People love and adore her, and she's such a good soul and such like a sweet person and such an awesome person to work with. And I kind of put it out there and did exactly what I'm talking about. I was like, this now exists. I'm gonna let everybody know. And I kind of didn't check in with it for like a week, and I went back and I was like, oh, hey,
That's
1K, like, hey, it's
You're not
living.
checking every hour to see what your hits are. And
That's
you come
like
back
the
and like,
nightmare zone. Hey,
it worked.
You're living out there.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just did the video and just about to launch the website.
And your album release show is
The album release show is on April 26th at Phoenix Clubhouse.
and this should drop around the 21st at least before that, so it'll be out before your show. So
it's gonna be great. I've got the lineup is really sweet. Just some really close people. I asked Miles to come through.
Yeah, there's gonna be some live art, right?
There's gonna be
That's
some
what I
live
hear.
art from a very good artist, and we're doing like, the parties that we've been throwing, and the focus has been something I feel like that for me was unprecedented, because we're blending things that I feel like people really gravitate to, especially with electronic music and electronic medium, is hip hop and dance music, really good dance music. And whether, so we got like a lot of hip hop acts on the front end, kind of get your blood up, get the MC movement going. People are like just getting hyped up to be there. My sister is flying up from Los Angeles to sing with me on
nice.
she's on 7 of the tracks. She's
Shout out to Mouse.
fantastic. Mouse. She's
Mouse.
coming through. And then after the last hip hop act, which will be me, we're gonna move into Zen Aware, who's a local cat, like 19-year-old kid who's just making the dopest music. He's got a huge following. He's got like thousands of listeners, and like his songs get like 250,000 plays on Spotify.
Wow.
It's just like popping.
Was he one of the dudes playing at the Gong Fu show?
No, he hasn't done that
Okay.
yet. We're trying to integrate him in more. He's a hot commodity. Who'd like try to call that cat and was like, "Hello, come play the show."
and he's up there in this area.
He's in this area. He's in
Nice.
Ashland. Yeah. So he's gonna play an hour set, and then we're closing the night with Brim, who's
Okay.
gonna do house music
Yeah.
for us for an hour,
Yeah.
and he's fantastic as well.
He played our first home. He crushed.
which was tight. Yeah. So that whole night is like about, come see, if you're in town and you want to rock with us, see how we do it, because we're doing hip hop and dance music with a very upful vibe. This is about like, come see some skills, come see some great songwriters and performers who really get it in. Josiah Bremer coming through, Sad Boy, KNG, I haven't met or seen, but he's Zenaware's boy. I'm sure he's gonna be dope. Yeah. And then and Jito. Young Jito is going to come through and beatbox and like do his thing. So we got like this awesome hip hop element, and then it's going to finish up with just a dance party for like 2.5 hours.
Dope.
And everybody,
Dope.
So that's what's coming through the pipeline. And I'm also hosting the silent discos, which is a thing. If you're in Ashland, the silent discos are like an installation they do in the park. They're moving them to the front of the park, which means there would be like super popular. There's like people walking by always just like gravitate to it like a moth to the flame. They're just like, what are all the lights? What are all those people doing out there? And I got asked to host everyone which is always on the first Friday of the month. And that's awesome. It's a kid-friendly event. Great DJs come through. Everybody's rocking headphones, and the music is just top-notch. And the first hip-hop vocal act that we are going to have for the year is going to be the Roomy
Oh my
Deps.
gosh!
Yeah.
Us?
Yeah.
What?
So it's going to be awesome. Yeah,
What a blessing.
we're gonna make a post about all the time sets that people are going to be playing, but it's just a great thing. There's all sorts of things going on, and working with, we're like developing songs. I'm producing a song for Young Windlung over here, top notch, featuring Mouse, which is like, so
We're all just getting down.
yeah.
The Renaissance is amongst us.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I
With
would
the pen, I flaunt this Renaissance-ish. Because the truth has been absconded.
Hey.
We're bringing it back.
Yeah.
Well, Jaya Raise, thanks for the tea
Yeah.
and for the show, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
I
sir.
was glad to be here. Happy
Yes.
to be invited. Thank you.
Windlung, Sun Yoga, Trip the photo guy from Variance Media.
Hey.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. And Z-Money.
And
Zorro himself.
Zorro himself.
We'll see you guys. In
I
a
wanted
couple
to do
weeks.
that.
Blessings to all
Peace.
sentient beings. Love.
Yeah.
sounds of AM.